If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life sleep.
It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
All systems go.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson. Now, every day from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Did we mention you can watch us at YouTube and KSLSports.com? And we're going to talk to Ryan S. Clark of ESPN. He covers the NHL. And we're looking to get him on the video link, Ben. New modern technology, so you'll get to not only absorb Ryan, but you could watch him too.
However you absorb. Alex Jensen was on the video link earlier with Scotty and the coach. I thought that was very cool. Nice of the coach to jump on the air link. Very cool.
Well, he's probably a technologically savvy guy. Aren't most assistant coaches, and Alex was an assistant for a long time, I'm sure they're pretty tech because it makes their job way easier. Yeah. Remember, I'm sure like Coach Lacombe probably can tell you about cutting up actual tape. Yeah.
Reel to reel.
Actually cutting up tape. I'm sure every technological advancement assistant coaches are like, yeah, let's implement that. Is that not cutting tape? Okay, let's do that. Okay, joining us now, yes, on the video link, very excited about it, covers the NHL for ESPN.com. He's Ryan S. Clark with us here on Jake and Ben. Hey, Ryan, what's going on?
How's everyone?
Yeah,
there we go.
We're great, Ryan. And, Stanley Cup playoffs are kind of new to this market, new to Salt Lake City. And, man, people are jacked up. People are bummed today, of course, and we can talk about the minutia of the series. But NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, huge hit here in Salt Lake City.
No, look, it's not a surprise because, even when you think about what the team was doing before they relocated to Salt Lake, they were building one of the better farm systems in the NHL. And so, not to get too nerdy right now, but Daryl Plandowski, who's the director of amateur scouting for the Mammoth, he was one of the people that helped build the Tampa Bay Lightning into the Goliath they are now. And so the thought is, if you can get Plandowski, and more importantly, you can get the infrastructure around them, who's to say what that might become? And now what you're seeing with what he's done, the trades that Bill Armstrong has made, is a team that right now with the Mammoth, whether it be this year, next year, or maybe the year after, they're one of those teams that can really help challenge sort of the power dynamic in the Western Conference, because we've seen the same four teams the last whatever. But when you look at Utah, you look at Anaheim, you think about what San Jose could be. It's certainly an interesting time in the league, and Utah's coming at a very fascinating time.
Ryan, I do get the sense that, and I felt this last night, that the honeymoon is over. There was a real honeymoon period. Of course there was. Nobody cared that they didn't make the playoffs last year. It was their first season here. They didn't even have an official name yet. Then they get the mascot, they get the name. We've got a Mammoth in state now all of a sudden. And I think people are ready for this team to start winning. So let me ask you, you have a sense of their timeline. You're talking about the young players that they've got. When is it fair to start expecting, a playoff series win? When should they have the talent to be able to accomplish these types of things and compete more?
Well, in a perfect world, you could argue right now, but it may be a year or 2 years from now. It might not. It might be longer, because let's take the LA Kings as a really good example. The LA Kings haven't won a first-round series in more than a decade. The last time they won a first-round series was when they won the Stanley Cup. And so they go through this rebuild. You still keep Drew Doughty and Andrei Kopitar as these foundational pieces, but then you go out and build what was one of the NHL's more promising farm systems. And so you've made that baseline of becoming a perennial playoff team. The issue is you run into the Goliath that is the Edmonton Oilers for 4 straight years. You get knocked out in the first round. Some cases it was 5 games. Other cases, it's been 7. Last year, they had a 2-0 lead, and the next thing you know, they lose 4 straight. Not like this year was any easier because they get the Colorado Avalanche, who finished with the best record in the league. But it is to say that, like, it can take time. And so while people might have these expectations of when it should happen, the hard part is other organizations also have expectations. So let's take a look at another series that's going on in the West right now between Dallas and Utah. Dallas is trying to get back to a 4th straight Western Conference final. Not Utah, excuse me, Dallas and Minnesota.
Right.
The Minnesota Wild, they have not been out of the first round in a very long time. Again, more than a decade. And they're now 1 win away from doing something that just hasn't been done, again, in a really long time. It's not to say that this season is a success or a failure if they do or don't win the series, but it's just, it illustrates that's how hard it is to win in this game. But more importantly, that's how hard it is to win in the Western Conference at this moment in time.
The Mammoth have had all these third period leads that they've ended up blowing, including, of course, obviously last night. And people are trying to diagnose that maybe as the sign of the team being young. Would you agree with that?
It's a little bit of youth, but it's also just more about how many of these moments have they been in. And so that's less about age, but just more about the group as a whole. And so when this team got built and you're bringing in the Sergachevs of the world, the Schmitz of the world, the Ian Coles, the Tanevs, those sorts of players, like those are players that have had postseason experience. In the case of Ian Cole and Mikhail Sergachev, like they have won multiple Stanley Cups, and there's something to be said for that. Whereas if you look at Vegas, even for all the changes it has gone through, number one, you still have a head coach that has not only won a cup, but has gone several rounds deep in the multiple playoff series throughout his career. But then a chunk of the core of that team is still in place that won the cup. So like Eichel is still there. Theodore is still there. Mark Stone is still there. Keegan Colasar, who's one of those bottom 6 players, is still there. And so, while yes, they've definitely lost players over time, there is a familiarity that they can call back to and say, we know what it's like to be down 1 game or 2 games. We know what it's like to be up 2 games. We know what it's like to be in overtime. And things like that do help this time of year. And it's not saying that Utah can't overcome that, but it is to say that the Golden Knights have gone through this. So there's a sense of memories they could draw from. Whereas if Utah, there's certain players on that team who can do it, but there is something to be said for players who've done it elsewhere versus the core that's doing it right there in the moment.
The Mammoth don't have true superstars on their roster right now. And, you look around some of the obvious big names around the NHL, and I'm not sure you would consider any of the Mammoth players that. Even, Clayton Keller, who's made several All-Star games and was in the Olympics, etc. Does a Logan Cooley or a Dylan Guenther, and I don't want to talk necessarily about the guys who are in the minors that haven't come up yet, but does anyone on this roster scream like, hey, they could get to that point, they could become a face of the franchise that's that level of player?
Oh, God, absolutely. Because, you said Clayton Keller, but let's go back to Mikhail Sergachev. Like, the reality of Mikhail Sergachev is he's a defenseman that does a lot, but you're looking at defensemen in this era where because of Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, Lane Hudson, we're expecting defensemen to score more than 70 to 80 points a year. Like, it's an unrealistic expectation for everyone, but that's just sort of where we're at. And that all started with guys like Erik Karlsson in terms of this modern iteration of defensemen. So you do have that. He may not be someone that you always see on commercials or out in front of, compared to other players, but he does exist. Clayton Keller's another. There is a thought that Logan Cooley could be that, but when you look at Dylan Guenther, it seems like if you had to put, let's say, some sort of, expectation on someone who could be that, it might be Dylan Guenther more than Logan Cooley. And not so much because it's a talent thing, because they're both immensely talented, but let's just look at where the Western Conference alone is when it comes to superstar centers. There are 2 guys in Edmonton for now. There's Nathan McKinnon. There's Leo Carlsson out in Anaheim. And there's this guy out in San Jose that people think could be the face of the league going forward if he's not already there. And that's already 5 players that you could look at as being superstars or close to superstars. Jack Nichol's another one. So, if you're looking at centers, you have to be at that level. And Logan Cooley could get there, but it might take time. God, that's not even taking the fact that Connor Bedard is also there. So, again, that is 8 centers. That's a lot. Whereas if you look at superstar wingers, and those wingers do exist, but at the same time, the way Dylan Guenther plays, the fact that people are just now getting used to him, if Utah keeps winning and he keeps putting up these 30, 40, possibly, let's say 50 goal seasons, he's going to get attention. Because if you look at him versus, let's say, someone like Kyle Connor in Winnipeg, Kyle Connor, you could argue, is the best scorer who probably doesn't get a lot of mainstream attention. And some of that is just by virtue of, hey, he plays in Winnipeg. Whereas if like playing in a place like Salt Lake and playing in a state like Utah, people will get attention. Like, let's not forget, this is the same state that one year produced an NFL and an NBA first #1 pick in both years. This is the same state that put out Stockton and Malone. Like, this is the same state that when you look at what's going on in Provo, they might have the #1 pick in the NBA draft. Like, people care immensely about what goes on in Utah, but more importantly, Utah has a history of showing that stars can come from here. And so if you're Dylan Gunther and you're the Mammoth, like, there's a possibility for that to exist, whether it's with him, Logan Cooley, or someone else.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life sleep.
The Mammoth are really struggling with the power play. Well, special teams in general, but really the power play. Whose responsibility usually is that? If something's not going right with special teams unit, is that usually a coaching thing? Is that a player thing? And in this particular circumstance, what do you make of the Mammoth struggling so badly in that area?
So it could be a coaching thing, but could also be a personnel thing, but could also be the fact that what Vegas has done in the postseason and when it comes to the PK, they've gotten historically better, but now you're looking at a different coaching approach with John Tortorella that was different than Bruce Cassidy. So it could be a culmination of all those different things. So like, let's start with personnel. The personnel that you have on first team power play would be what? Cooley, Schmaltz, Keller, Gunther, and Sergachev. So that's a good mix of skill. It's a good mix of size. Now, yes, is there a conversation of maybe do you adjust some things so that way when you're in those low slot areas, you have maybe like a bigger body like a Lawson Krause who's down there? Potentially, maybe, who's to say? But some of it too is if you look at the way that Vegas is built, they have enough two-way forwards who, they're really good at playing this aggressive style, which takes away time and space, even though they're skater down. But also, what Vegas does on defense is they've had a lot of size. That's been one of the hallmarks of why they've been so successful the last 4 or 5 years, especially when it comes to trying to win Stanley Cups, is they have a level of size that they can just use to create problems. But then again, it also goes back to what John Tortorella has done. And so that's just it. It's like these are things that are going to happen in the postseason. It's what makes the need to score an even strength, or even when you can take advantage of those power play chances more important. So yes, maybe you could argue it's a coaching challenge. Maybe you could argue it's a personnel challenge. You could also argue it's how do you find a way to solve for what the Golden Knights have been able to do? Because remember, like, you're talking about a team that not only has that championship pedigree, but you now have a head coach in place who's maybe able to see and do some things that are different that people haven't quite figured out those tendencies just yet.
What, Ryan, and maybe just ask, is there a traditional team building strategy that we see across the NHL? Like, I know that the Wild had Kaprizov, and then they went out and were very aggressive to get Quinn Hughes to, like, take that next step, get out of the first round, like you were mentioning. A team like the Mammoth that is young and still has guys coming up through the minors like Tija Ginla and like Denwayé. Is it traditional to just kind of let them develop into the system, or are teams usually aggressive when they have young players like that and a pretty good team already of, trading to skip steps, bring in a more proven player?
So it's all dependent upon situation, but let's say it's a 70-30 split, 70 being you let the youth and your development model take its course with the idea that there will come a point when you have to go out and get those sort of players. And so the example you just brought up was the Minnesota Wild, and it's a great example. Yes, people see Kaprizov, but that's a process that started in terms of homegrown, going back to someone like Jared Spurgeon. Granted, Brock Faber was drafted by the Kings. They acquired him in a trade, but they did play a part in his development. Matt Boldy is another player. Jesper Wallstedt, who's been their star rookie goalie, who's looked really strong this postseason, is another example of that. Jonas Verdeen is another example of that. But then it's when you start going out and you bring in the Matt Zuccarellos, the Marcus Folignos. Like, yes, those are older acquisitions in terms of the time that they've been there, but they've helped you establish your culture and foundation. So that way, when you draft the Kaprizovs of the world and then you start bringing in the Quinn Hughes, like that's the way you're able to bring in the Quinn Hughes of the world, because like you were able to trade 3 of your homegrown players, 2 of which were first rounders. I believe Liam Ogren was a second or third rounder, and you also parted with a first round pick to make it happen. Like that is the way teams are trying to win in this league. Like everybody looks at Vegas and they're the outlier because again, they just haven't had the time to really build the farm system other teams have. But when you look at the way the Colorado Avalanche won, and there's a discussion to be had about what they've done from the second round on, but the bulk of that core were all first round talents. You look at, let's say, what other teams like Tampa has done. Tampa built those championships by being so strong through the draft and undrafted free agents. So like those things do play a part and they do matter. Like, yes, you can go the Vegas or the Florida model where like you're able to bring in help from the outside and you're able to, identify people who work within your system. But what Utah is doing, what San Jose is doing, what Anaheim is doing, what Chicago is doing, like there's a reason people keep doing this. It's because it's been proven to be the most effective or one of the most effective ways to win long term.
Ryan, I'm curious. You obviously cover the league for ESPN, and the league has been back on the worldwide leader since 2021, somewhere in there. I'm curious, what do you think has been the impact of the league returning to ESPN?
This is a little bit of a difficult question to ask. No one told me about this. No, but to be serious, it's really about visibility more than anything, because if you look at it from this standpoint, every league, including the NFL, is fighting for eyeballs, and you want to go where people are, because like if you look at the different entertainment options that exist for people, whether it be in sports or Netflix or Spotify or Apple or whatever your entertainment choices are, they're nearly endless. And while they're nearly endless, like you also have people who they have all the money in the world to play with. You have some people who don't have all the money in the world to play with. And so if you're one of those leagues who's trying to get attention and meet people at every price point, you want to go where people are. And if you have an opportunity to go get what you think is a television arrangement with a network that you feel has a very large reach, then by all means, you would go do it. It makes the most business sense. And so if you're the NHL or you're any other league, those are the things that you're looking at, because when we talk about these conversations of how everyone is trying to solve for this problem, it's something colleges are thinking about, pro teams are thinking about. It's the idea of like, how do you sell this new wave of fan, being millennials, being Gen Z, being Gen Alpha, on the idea of like, why do you want to watch a game when you can go do so many other things? And so if you're going to watch a game, how do you find a way to make it worth their time? And if you're the NHL, you're trying to do that, but get it in front of as many people as humanly possible.
Does it feel like the NHL is in a good spot?
It would seem so, yeah. But it also comes with the understanding, too, that let's think about the last time ESPN had the NHL. The landscape looked very different. Whereas if the world that we are in now, yes, there's the 4 major men's professional leagues, but like the WNBA is something a lot of people care about, NWSL and MLS. But even then, just the way soccer is taken off in this country, not even just with the domestic leagues, but like people care about the Premier League and La Liga and Bundesliga and Serie A and Ligue 1 in France and the Champions League and Europa League and the World Cup coming up. Like college football has grown exponentially. Like college basketball, men's and women, has grown exponentially. Formula One, and I say this as someone who's been a gearhead since they were 6 years old, like to go from a world where like you had to be the sicko who stayed up till like 4 a.m. to watch Suzuka, to now be at a point where people talk about this. Yeah, the NHL's in a good place, but it comes with the understanding of there's a lot of competition.
Well, Ryan, we couldn't thank you enough for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun conversation, and hopefully you won't mind if we bug you again.
Thanks for jumping on the video phone.
Hey, no problem. Feel free to have me back. Love Salt Lake, one of my favorite places. And the most underrated in and out in America is the one that's at the Centerville exit. So that's how serious I take Salt Lake City.
Wow, look at that. That
Ball
is
knower.
serious.
Yeah.
He knows the better one of the locations in Utah. Well done, Ryan. Well done. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Wow, I got to tell you, I've eaten at several In-N-Out locations, and I did not know that the Centerville one was top notch. Shout out to them.
Where does Ryan reside? Do we know? Okay, he's great. No,
that was really good.
From Ryan. Yeah.
Once Christian decided to stop sabotaging the interview, I thought it went extremely well.
Just let him on the air, Christian. Next time, just let him jump on. We like having him.
He was really good.
I'll do better.
Thank you.
I know that people out there are thirsting for Ben and I to tread water. I know it's our best radio.
Yeah.
It really is. It's when we shine, when we have no idea what's going on. No, we're kidding, of course. I'm glad we got that straightened out. And it is really cool that he can jump on the video feed and have that up. That's awesome.
It's good stuff.
All right, stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next for you. The Bear, Andre Tourney, joins the show at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Bill Oram at 4:30. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life sleep.